Welcome everybody to the February 11th Township Committee meeting. We've just come out of executive session, so I apologize for our delay in getting to our regular meeting. Greg, we did do the call to order of the meeting. We did do the proper notice. Do you need to do that again in our regular session?
We don't have to, but I can if you want.
If you could, was proper notice of this meeting given?
Adequate notice of this meeting, the Township Committee was given as required by the Open Public Meetings Act as follows. Notice was given about the Chatham Courier and the Morris County Daily Record on January 8th, 2021. Mark, if you can mute yourself and turn off your audio. Notice was posted on the front door of the bulletin board in the main hallway of the municipal building on January 8th, 2021. And notice was filed with the Township Clerk on January 8th, 2021.
Thank you very much, Greg. Can we have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Felice?
Here.
Mr. Hamilton?
Here.
Mrs. Fundaco?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Ewald?
Here.
And Mayor Ness.
Here.
We have the whole Township Committee.
Thank you. Could I ask everyone to join us in the flag salute? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Look at that. We have a flag graphic. Very nice, Greg. Very nice.
Rather than getting everybody's gut shot.
That's true. Tonight we have a proclamation recognizing Black History Month, so I'm going to go ahead and read that. Whereas during Black History Month we celebrate the many achievements and contributions made by African Americans to our economic, cultural, spiritual, and political development. And whereas in 1915 Dr. Carter Godwin Woodson, a noted black scholar and son of former slaves, founded the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History, which was later renamed the Association for the Study of African American Life and History. And whereas Dr. Woodson initiated Black History Week on February 12, 1926, and for many years the second week of February, chosen so as to coincide with the birthdays of Frederick Douglass and Abraham Lincoln, was celebrated by African Americans in the United States. And whereas in 1976, as part of the nation's bicentennial, Black History Week was expanded and became Black History Month and is now celebrated all over North America. Now, therefore, I, Tracy Ness, Mayor of Chatham Township, do hereby proclaim February 2021 as Black History Month in Chatham Township and urge all citizens to celebrate our diverse heritage, culture, and continue our efforts to create a world that is more just and peaceful and prosperous for all. Thank you. Tonight we have, we've brought back a past practice, which is having year-end reports done by all of our committees and our commissions and our partner organizations to let them speak about some of the good works that they're doing, let our residents know what they're up to and what they've been up to for the past year. I think it's a terrific way to highlight what our volunteer organizations do. And tonight we're going to have annual reports from our Planning Board and our Zoning Board of Adjustment. And we're going to move right into those reports so that they don't have to sit through the rest of the meeting, because I'm sure evenings get long.
Madam, before we move on, I noticed earlier in the schedule we were supposed to have the approval of the agenda. I don't know if that procedurally can take place after these reports.
We can do that now.
You want to do that now? Before we get to report, before we do the annual reports? Yes?
Yes, you should.
Okay, then we will go ahead and I will ask for a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll move to approve the agenda.
I want to pull out the resolutions to appoint the 3 new committees.
We can do that when we get to the executive, the consent agenda.
Okay, we'll do that when we get to the consent agenda. Do I have a second to move the agenda, the entire agenda? Second? Thank you. The agenda is approved.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions?
And
Okay.
did you want to announce that we're doing the executive session at the end?
Yes, and we're also going to be, because we didn't complete our executive session in the first round, we also are going to be moving into executive session at the end of this meeting. So we will have an additional executive session. And I see Tom Franco is on board from our planning board. Thank you very much for coming here tonight, Tom. And we look forward to hearing what you have to say about what's going on with our planning board. You're muted. Tom, we can't really hear you. I think you have to turn up your volume on your computer. Fun with technology. You never know what you're going to get when you log on. I know yours works very well for the planning board, so I don't know why it's working and not working now.
For some reason it's garbled.
Adjust the volume up on that one.
I can try and adjust the volume up here.
Keep talking, Tom.
All right, give it a shot, Tom. No, it's not working. It sounds.
Did you find the audio settings under Zoom? If you go into next to the mute button, you can find the audio settings. You click on the little tab next to the mute button and open up audio settings. Let's see. What are the usual things? Roy, can you crank it up a little more? The other option, Tom, is if you call in on your phone, because I've had to do this, you keep your video on, you shut off your sound on your computer, but you call in on your phone to speak.
You want to give that a try, Tom? Because we can't hear you at all now. At best, you were underwater.
If there's a problem, I have the printout of the report, so that it can be read into the record or summarized.
Well, I'd like to give Tom the opportunity to speak about
I
it.
agree.
Which, just before the meeting, I got the revised version of the written report. Which is not in a format that I'm able to open. Here we go. Okay, Tom, if you're the 201 area code number.
Okay.
If you could mute yourself on the computer.
Am I there now? To me, I'm having innumerable echoes. But
Turn off your speaker on your computer.
you know what? Why don't you go to the planning board and I'll log back on and see if that'll work.
Actually, you have it working, you just need to turn off your
Computer speaker.
computer speaker. So lead. Yeah, so just turn off your computer speaker. Put the volume all the way down.
Am I okay now?
Yeah.
No. Is that better?
Woohoo! Yes.
I apologize.
No worries.
No worries.
Okay, without further ado, we'll have Tom Franco, who is the chairman of our planning board committee, present their annual report.
Thank you very much. As you know, 2020 was a year with unique challenges. The COVID pandemic created issues in the management of the planning board, but we did our business and considered a lot of different matters. 3 broad matters: affordable housing and redevelopment projects, review and adoption of master plan elements and determinations of master plan consistency, and land development applications and other requests. I should note that our then current board chairman, Don Travisano, resigned from the board because he and his family relocated out of the township. Mr. Travisano did a great job leading the board. The board elected me as Travisano's suggested successor to chair the board for the remainder of 2020. First of all, affordable housing and redevelopment projects. While the Township Committee and its council directly participated in the affordable housing litigation and handled ordinance implementation and the bulk of related work, the Planning Board played an integral role by determining master plan consistency of all affordable housing related implementation ordinances, recommending some affordable housing sites in areas of need area of redevelopment, and reviewing and deciding related site plan and variance applications. I will give more information about each of the land development applications as I continue. The board also played an important role in overseeing the redevelopment projects within the township. In considering both the affordable housing projects and the redevelopment plans, the board conducted hearings in which it received testimony from applicants and inquiry and comment from board professionals, board members, and members of the public. Specifically, we authorized the planning consultant
All the way down to the top.
But tell Tom to stop. Tom, if you can turn off the speaker on your computer, we keep getting feedback. Now turn up the volume on yours.
Sorry about that. I think is that better?
Yes.
Okay. I think I got something.
We can't hear
We
him.
authorized planning consultant to conduct a study to determine whether 522 Southern Boulevard constituted a condemnation area in need of redevelopment. And we determined that the area known as 522 Southern Boulevard likewise constituted a condemnation area in need of redevelopment. In connection with our review and adoption of master plan elements and determination of master plan consistency, we did a number of things. As you know, among our statutory duties is to conduct periodic reviews of the master plan and to consider and adopt elements of that plan. During 2020, we reviewed and conducted public hearings on the following master plan elements: the housing plan and fair share plan element, and the affordable housing spending plan. In that connection, we reviewed and adopted a housing plan element and fair share plan, and adopted a spending plan in accordance with the affordable housing development initiatives. We also considered open space plan elements. We reviewed and adopted an updated open space element to include additional information about recreation sites within the township. This was turned out to be a very nice thing we did. Up-to-date maps and descriptions were made part of the open space plan. We need to recognize the hard work and help of Joe Bazarelian, who's the chair of the Open Space Committee in that respect. I commend that section to all of your reading. Also, the circulation plan element was reviewed. We designated a subcommittee chaired by board member Kathy Abbott to review the current circulation plan element and consider an updated circulation plan element. We're going to continue reviewing this element, and we expect that the updated plan will be presented soon. We also are required to determine whether zoning and land use ordinances introduced by the Township Committee were consistent with the master plan. We conducted master plan consistency reviews of the following: an ordinance regarding the Arbor Green or skate park and found that was not inconsistent. We reviewed 344 Hillside, found that property was inconsistent but advanced the goals and objectives of the master plan. We recommended requiring conservation easements over the steep slopes. We designated 522 Southern Boulevard. We found that inconsistent with the redevelopment plan there, but found that it advanced the affordable housing goals and other objectives of the master plan. Also known, we adopted amended the redevelopment plan for the property at 522 Southern Boulevard. And again, we found that the plan was inconsistent with the master plan, but advanced the goals and objectives of the master plan. We recommended limiting the number of stories and permitted uses. There were other ones, one regarding the retrofitting of private storm drain inlets, and regarding stormwater management best practices. Found both of those not inconsistent. And finally, we looked at the ordinance, amending the land development ordinance, and to address elements of the Fair Housing Act and the Uniform Housing Affordability Controls in compliance with the town's affordable housing obligations, and found that ordinance not inconsistent. We also acted on several land development applications and other requests. We heard applications including Treetop Lane. That was a request for relief from a condition in a final subdivision approval to forego replacing the asphalt sidewalks with concrete sidewalks. After a somewhat heated hearing, that application was denied. There was a request to rezone 344 Hillside Avenue to allow for the development of housing and a group home. We granted that request, and of course, we're now currently hearing an application. Actually, we just approved that application, where the applicant seeks the site plan and related relief in order with the project. With respect to 401 Southern Boulevard, we amended a minor subdivision approval to reduce the size of the property from approximately 3.8 acres to approximately 1.04 acres, and to preserve additional township land and freshwater wetlands. The Oak Knoll School of the Holy Child at 300 Green Village, their athletic fields, there was a request to modify the conditions regarding the use of the athletic fields, and we granted that application. And lastly, Sterling Sun at Chatham, there was a request for preliminary and final major subdivision and bulk variance approvals to subdivide the 4.5 acre property into 5 single-family dwellings, and the development of those lots, and that, as you know, was just approved. The members of the board, thank you, and the board professionals are working diligently and great dedication to protect the interests of the residents of Chatham Township and to ensure appropriate land development. As chair, I'm happy to personally congratulate all of the members of the board for their loyalty and their hard work. And that's our report.
Thank you very much, Tom. I appreciate it. Look forward to our next planning board meeting.
So do I. Thank you very much.
Sorry for the technical issues, but
Well,
we overcame it.
That's my fault, and I apologize for that.
No worries. Thanks again, Tom.
Thank you.
And Greg, if you can let...
Mr. Vavona, I managed to get in touch with him. He's unfortunately delayed and not able to be here tonight.
Oh, okay.
So we'll reschedule his report.
Okay. So scheduled for tonight was the Zoning Board of Adjustment, and we will not be able to do that tonight, so we will move on to the regular report section of the meeting. I'm going to start with the mayor's message. I have to put my glasses on for this. So winter storms have been making their presence known in the township with 28 inches of snow and counting. Many thanks and a huge shout out to our DPW for being out there in the storm, for being out there all night, and for making our roads terrific. So, and we've gotten lots of compliments from residents who needed to get out and were able to get out. So thank you very much to our DPW. I'm hearing we might get another storm Saturday into Sunday, and I hope for their sake that we don't. Also thanks to our police and our fire departments and our EMS for being at the ready. It's always a job very well done. As a community, we're starting to see the impact of development with both the Dixie-Dale property and the affordable housing site at Arbor Green on Southern Boulevard. Many of you may have attended the planning board meetings back in 2018 and made your voices heard and saw the schematics and saw the boards, but it's very difficult and sad to see the reality of it. So we acknowledge that property owners can and will sell to developers, but there is an alternate route through our open space program and some terrific examples of public and private partnerships that have preserved historic and environmentally sensitive land. Land purchased through the open space programs are valued at their highest and best use, so there's no discount. And so if you own a large parcel of land and you're considering selling, please reach out to the committee or to our open space folks so we can have a discussion with you before it moves into development. On affordable housing, we are continuing to negotiate with Kronos Holdings to acquire 522 Southern Boulevard to complete our third round obligation, and we appreciate all of the community support that we've received for this plan. We have spoken with the developers for Noe Pond and let them know that we will not be considering any discussions on the development until a letter of interpretation has been obtained by the DEP with regards to the wetlands, setbacks, or the pond itself. They were very happily understanding of this, and that neither the committee nor the public could engage in any discussions until we have an idea of what the actual development could be on that land. So that was good news. For our COVID update, the township recorded 20 new cases since February 3rd, which is up from 11 in the same time period when I reported before. So it's an uptick, and it means that we need to continue to be vigilant. However, our total cases are at 22, which is still lower than where we started the year at 26. So keep wearing those masks. As regards to COVID vaccinations, I participated in a call with state representatives and advocated for a site such as CVS or Walgreens in our corner of Morris County to be able to receive the vaccines, as it's a hardship, especially for our seniors, to be able to get to Rockaway. And this was happenstance. I don't think it was as a result of me advocating to the state, but luckily CVS in Chatham Borough is one of the sites that is accepting registrations. They weren't one of the 27 initially publicized, but they popped up today. And it's going to be one of those things where they're refreshing the site every 30 seconds, but they are receiving vaccine, and it's good news that we do have something close to us for everybody in our community. Atlantic Health is registering for the Rockaway location, but in speaking with their representatives, again, because Rockaway is 40 minutes away, their system will recognize the zip code. They have opened up a vaccination center in their community center, but you can't select that. You can't go on to Atlantic Health and select that as your location. but they have assured me that there is an algorithm that will recognize the zip code, and they have the closest sites to us are the community center itself, Basking Ridge or Morristown. Please don't call, in speaking with all of these folks, please don't call the Summit Community Center. They are rec staff there, and they have nothing to do with vaccine registration. We all know that frustration is running high, that it is not the best system to have everybody logging on to multiple sites and trying to find a spot for an appointment, and somebody might log on and get one for Saturday, and somebody may log on and not get anything for days. I think that once the additional vaccines will be coming, and that stock starts to go back up, the distribution centers are there, it's the vaccine that isn't. So we'll keep monitoring it. If there are additional sites that open up, if there is a process that we can get for those that can't get to any of the vaccine sites, we're working on that. And as is the senior center, and we'll be having a meeting on that on Saturday. Good stuff. Thanks to our DPW, the ice skating is happening at Nash Field. It's great to see people out enjoying the chilly weather. I'm sure that they actually Rich Young went out. Another shout out to DPW for putting another layer of water on the ice at the suggestion of one of our residents because it had been so well used. Snow is not a friend to ice, so hopefully we'll be able to get that back up and running. Comcast has officially accepted our township ordinance renewing the cable franchise. They need to get BPU approval, and then we get the $35,000 that was negotiated to help upgrade our broadcasting equipment. So that's a big shout out to you, Alex, and that hopefully we'll be getting you some updated equipment in this year. And also a shout out to Tom Salvis and Albert and to Bob for helping us go through this because it got very much delayed through the pandemic, but the $35,000 will go a long way to helping us upgrade our equipment. The skate park has submitted some proposals based on possible sites that we reviewed after we did a lovely spring walk through all of our fields in anticipation of looking at kind of master plan and rec things. So they have been working with their vendor to take a look at those sites and see if a suitable skate park and what that would cost and how it would fit. So we just received that this week. We're going to continue to have issues with wetlands with the sites, but we're making progress. So very much appreciate their moving forward with the vendor and getting us some more ideas as to how this would work. The final HVAC unit for the municipal building was installed on Wednesday. We were lucky to sneak it in between storms, Bob.
Yes, we were.
So that means that we will have air circulation and reliable air conditioning in the gym, part of the airflow into the gym and into that section of the municipal building. So that completes that project. So kudos, Bob, for getting that done, getting it done with a grant and saving a lot of money in the process. Finally, I met with our EMS, Steve Davenport and Mike Lemons, and was happy to report that their operations are doing well. They're well staffed. They are dealing with COVID issues in their emergency calls. They stand at the ready during storms, and I was asked to remind everybody that these are, like our fire departments, these are all volunteer, and they rely on contributions from the community. So if you have the ability to help out our emergency services, I would ask that you do that. I was joking with them that there are always people that you want to have. You don't want to see them, but when you do, you're awfully glad that they're there. And I think that concludes the reports. So I'm going to move on to our individual committee members to give their reports for their committee assignments. Mark, would you like to start?
Sure. Yeah, obviously, not a ton of activity in 1 month, and particularly with the storm and the pandemic, but I did attend the first meeting of the year of the Board of Trustees of the Library of the Chathams, which, as I guess most people know, remains closed, doing yeoman's work to service the book borrowing needs of the public on a remote sort of virtual online basis. But discussions are certainly underway as we move into the spring to finally go about getting the library open to the public again, which I know many people are calling for. Obviously, likely on a limited capacity basis in the first instance, and nothing formal to report on that end, but it's certainly a goal that I'm happily supporting, and many other people in the community are. And beyond that, obviously the Public Safety Committee is, Tracy touched on the storm and the great work by the DPW and the police, in that regard, and thankfully 30 inches of snow tends to probably deter people roaming around looking for open cars too. But I will caution everybody again in my role as the Public Safety Committee to don't leave your keys in your car, and please lock your cars. Thanks.
Ashley?
Yes, in regards to Colony Pool, I'm really happy to report the good news from Colony Pool. We're planning and preparing for the summer of 2021. We anticipate as of now being open to members beginning this Memorial Day weekend. I'm happy to report that last summer there was no pandemic-related transmissions reported or traced to the pool operation, staff, or membership. We will continue to follow the required precautions for this season. In the next few weeks, we look forward to announcing registration for past, present, and new members. This summer, we are planning and hopeful to have swim team back, group and private swim lessons, and to reintroduce some favorite programs. Colony Pool and Recreation has a rich and deep history in our town as a beautiful, safe resource for family recreation, individual growth, and fostering social connections. This year, Colony is refocused on providing a solution for families and residents looking for balance. The club is an ideal solution for families, even on, or perhaps even those who already have summer morning camps but are looking for an afternoon of positive program with a constructive environment. We welcome new members. We have heard so many citizens call in regarding Noe's unfortunate closing, and we've seen the Save Noe effort in town. One great way to preserve and ensure the vibrance of yet another Chatham landmark, the Colony Club, is to become a member. Also, we're hiring for summer staff, including lifeguards and gate staff. So please check with Bob about the application process. Also, I would be remiss not to commend all of our incredibly hardworking DPW workers who have worked tirelessly over the past few weeks, keeping our streets clear and safe for us. So thank you for our effort. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Celeste? You have to get off mute. There you go.
I'm ready. I have the Historical Society, which will be having a program on Sunday, February 21st at 2 p.m. And it's a presentation on New Jersey diners, presented by Michael Gabriel. And he will give the history of the diners in New Jersey, and also will include the 90-year-old Summit Diner. If you'd like to go, you can get the link to the Zoom if you go to their Facebook page. And that's on the 21st, did I say yes, the 21st of February. And then on the, this is later on in March, and I'll bring it up again next time, but that's about New Jersey women in World War II. And the speaker for that is Patricia Chapini. And she's a historian and a professor, and she'll talk about the important roles New Jersey women played in World War II. So that, I'll give you the Zoom information on that when that time comes. And also, the first time I went to the Mayor's Wellness Committee, they met for the first time in over a year. And they will be continuing to reach out. This is where they started, I guess where they left off last year. But they will continue to reach out to residents to encourage and educate them about preparing an end-of-life plan. And hopefully they'll be able to soon offer some programs and more information on this subject. And I also have the Environmental Commission, and I'm just going to read this one because it's a lot of stuff in it. Chatham Township has long been a leader in environmental friendly practices. We are one of the very few communities to be continuously certified by the Sustainable New Jersey program since its inception in 2009. As we do every 3 years, this year we will recertify by documenting our sustainable practices. For the first time this year, we have a goal of becoming certified at the silver level. There are some actions on tonight's agenda towards that goal. We expect to apply for state funding to install electric vehicle charging stations at 3 locations in the township. We are also asking the Township Committee to reaffirm some resolutions supporting sustainability that have been taken in the past. The Environmental Commission is researching other possible actions that will benefit the Township and will bring them to the Township Committee's attention when a strong case can be made for them. Now that's all, but if Albert around so I can thank him for something. He spoke out to Amy Mason to contact and introduce some consultants for the Community Energy Aggregation Program. And they've been that's been very helpful. So thank you, Albert. I'm done.
Thank you, Celeste. Stacy?
So the Municipal Alliance Committee of the Chathams met this week. And for those of you who are not familiar with the Municipal Alliance Committee of the Chathams, they've been around for a long time, and their objective is to reduce alcohol and substance abuse. But in that process, recognizing that stress, anxiety, wellness is all a part of that. So they will support programs throughout the community, generally related to health and wellness. They've done things for the seniors in our community. They have various programs, and for the students, they've covered a number of programs across the community, which they're a wonderful organization. Their funding was frozen last year because of the pandemic. They did receive funding from JCATA, the Governor's Council, and whatever ADA, the rest of that stands for, but I think alcohol and drug abuse. So they did receive funding of $6,000 from JCATA that they will be able to use throughout the year for programs. They will be seeking, and normally do receive from Chatham Township and from Chatham Borough, matching funds, and they'll be seeking about $750 in matching funds from each of the 2 communities. There is a program on February 24th. I just wanted to remind residents at 7 p.m. The school district, the Coalition of School Districts, is hosting a program on adolescent anxiety. I'm on, between the Madison Alliance Committee of the Chathams, Madison-Chatham Coalition, and Tri-Town Cares, very aware of the impact of the pandemic on mental health. And especially when you layer on this horrible weather, the stories that we're hearing of where people are at this point in time. So for parents who have kids that are struggling, and or, if you just want to stay ahead of the concerns, especially pandemic related, February 24th, the program on adolescent anxiety. And you can get more information on the school district's website, chatham-nj.org. As Tom Franco mentioned, we had a planning board meeting. We reviewed Sterling's application for a subdivision and for bulk variances. They were approved for variances related to some of the steep slopes. So they were some of the less steep slopes, I should say, that they were impacting. They were not approved for variances that they were looking for on height. That'll be something they'd have to come back on an individual basis at a later date. Finance Committee also has met a couple of times, and I just want people to understand what the process is for approving the budget. The budget will be introduced on February 25th. That is an overview. The real discussion and the nuts and bolts of the budget is discussed on March 25th, which is when the public hearing takes place. So you'll get some insight on February 25th, like I said, the overview, and then the big discussion is on March 25th. I don't want to kind of reveal what's going on or reveal the hand, if you will, but the key drivers are what we already know. Affordable housing is a key driver of the budget, and what we experienced with last year's budget, there were some debt principal payments that they're just structured the way that they were structured years ago. There are some principal payments that have to be made, and that those two were some of the key drivers for the budget. So tune in on February 25th and then again on March 25th.
Thank you, Stacy. Before we get to you, Bob, I'm going to ask John Rushke, do you have any updates that you'd like to provide?
Sure, I'll just briefly note, as the committee sees on the consent agenda, we did receive bids for the Hillside Avenue Trail project, and we did receive a very competitive bid. And that project, as you recall, is being partly funded through a grant with Morris County. And looking forward to completing that project in the spring. And we also received bids today on our alum tank, which is an improvement at the wastewater treatment plant. We haven't reviewed the bid yet, but we did also receive another favorable bid on that project too. So we are hoping to award that project at the next meeting. And that's all I have.
Oh, terrific. It's terrific. Thanks very much to you and to our Open Space Committee for pursuing that trail grant, and looking forward to that in the spring as well. Albert, do you have any reports for the committee?
Yes, Ms. Mayor. First of all, I'd like to thank Ms. Van Dunkel for her kind words. I was listening. I wasn't on the screen or at the mute. The second part of it is that on February 24th at 6:30 p.m., there is going to be a public hearing by Zoom regarding a Green Acres diversion application. This goes back a number of years ago, and Ms. Ewald was part of that discussion. The township went out when the electric company was redoing their lattice towers to monopoles. There was a requirement that 2 of their antenna arrays be relocated. The township went out to bid, received bids. Ultimately, a temporary cell tower was installed at Colony Pool and a second at Esternay Field. Those leases were for a temporary period, and were approved by the Department of Environmental Protection, Green Acres, because both of those are Green Acres properties. As a result of circumstances beyond the control of the cell tower company, they overstayed their leases the period that was approved by the Green Acres, including extensions. That triggered a technical diversion requirement, and that process has been ongoing for a number of years. There was some initial litigation between T-Mobile and the township that was resolved. An application for this diversion has been made. At the beginning of last year, there was the first scoping hearing. Now on February 24th, there's a second scoping hearing, all as part of the diversion process. Obviously, the cell towers were removed and the property restored at the end of 2018. But we're going through the process, the diversion process with the DEP and the State House Commission is a long process, and that is compounded by the COVID crisis. So on the 24th of February at 6:30, there will be a public hearing. Individuals within 200 feet of those 2 properties were noticed, and signs were put up at both facilities, and notices are also on the township website. So I just wanted you to be aware of that. The township has been paid for the diversion by T-Mobile in excess of $274,000. They've also created an escrow to pay for all the legal fees and associated costs. So while it was a technical violation, it has been quite expensive for the T-Mobile carrier. So you'll hear that, or you'll see that on the 24th. You don't need to attend. The attorney for T-Mobile and I will conduct the public hearing, but it will be on Zoom. A transcript will be prepared and all sent down to the DEP Green Acres. And after the hearing, there is a 30-day public comment period of anyone that wants to make additional comments. Just wanted to make you aware of that because notices were sent out, notices are on the property, and if you get a question about it, it's really completing what was finished essentially 2 years ago from a practical perspective.
Thank you, Albert. And we have had some community comment when they see the big green sign go up and see the amount that's there. That's the amount that we received. It was actually a benefit to us that they overstayed their welcome. But thank you, Albert, for pointing out that this is kind of cleaning up paperwork from what was done a while ago.
Yes.
Thank you. And Bob, what's the good word?
Usually it's Grease because John Travolta did his act with his daughter at the Super Bowl. So on that note, I wanted to also echo that our township engineer deserves to be commended for some of the preliminary work that was done for the Hillside Avenue grant. The resolution is 2021-074. The hillside is steep, and when it was walked by the engineer and myself and Rich Young, our superintendent of public works, it was going to be hard for the vendors, the contractors, to see exactly what type of slope that they were dealing with. So the township was gracious enough to allocate funds so that we could go in, stake the area, and have a contractor come in and clear a path so that the contractors that were bidding on the project would know exactly where the path is so that they wouldn't overestimate it. And that's one of the reasons why we have a very good price for this project. So we have grant funding of approximately $119,000, and this came in at around $69,000. So, you know, there was people knew exactly where they were going to have to go. So this was just good planning, and kudos to John for that. Thank you for talking about the HVAC unit that was installed on the roof. It's going to provide air conditioning for part of the building, and it's going to provide better airflow for the gym and for our recreation areas. It won't provide a whole lot of air conditioning, but it's going to help improve the airflow circulation there. So that's going to be something that's positive. The other items to be noted is that at one of our future meetings, the Environmental Commission is going to give a report, and one of the things that they're going to talk about is electric vehicle charging stations. And last fall, and the Environmental Commission, and particularly Dot Stillinger, deserves to be commended, because last fall, Dot and I spoke outside of the building, and we were talking about different trends. And I had asked for the Environmental Commission's input and help in looking at electric vehicle charging stations at some of our parking areas where we could have people go to sporting events and plug in and recharge their cars. The Environmental Commission took some ideas. They went out, they did all the hard work, and lo and behold, Green Acres approved 3 locations for charging stations, and now we can go and apply for the grants. We had to get the preliminary approval, but without the help of our wonderful volunteers, this would not have happened. So Green Acres has approved putting charging stations in at Nash Field, at Shunpike Field, and here at the Municipal Building in the lower parking lot where our seniors park and our recreation activities are. So you'll be hearing about that in the future, but kudos to DOT and to the Environmental Commission for following up on that. So that's basically my report, and there are some other items on the agenda that I can speak about when the time comes. Thank you.
Terrific. And we also have our first hybrid. Did we talk about that? Our first hybrid police car?
I think so. We have a hybrid SUV that's on patrol, and that is something that we're going to be excited to follow over time. We have two hybrids. We have 2 police SUVs that are very similar. One's a hybrid and one's a regular internal combustion engine vehicle. So this is a first for the area, and we'll see how things go. But I'm excited to follow the concept.
Terrific. Thank you very much. Greg, I didn't want to forget you.
Just real quick, normally I report on this at the Board of Health, but since I have an actual audience at the Township Committee meeting, I would just like to remind residents that dog license renewals were due in by January 31st. We have had many residents already register their dogs, and I thank those who have done so. But if there's anyone out there who hasn't renewed their dog license yet, I would ask you to please do so. And also remind residents, I'm sure we have many cat owners out there, and yes, cat licenses are required. I know there's a lot of cats out there that are not licensed. So before we wind up having to do any kind of animal census to catch up with people, I would ask people to do the right thing and get your cats licensed. The paperwork is online, and if anyone has any questions, they can give me a call during normal business hours.
Terrific. Thank you very much, Greg. And now we're going to move on to the first hearing of citizens for the evening. And as always, I will read our lovely statement. Because of the public health emergency declared by the governor's executive orders, this meeting is being held remotely as a virtual meeting. If you are watching via cable TV or Comcast Channel 29 or Fios Channel 26, you can participate in the public comment session of this meeting by dialing any of the phone numbers which are listed on the agenda and which will be shown on your TV screen. Then dial *9 to raise your hand. If you're watching via Zoom, you may speak during any of the public comment sessions by following the Zoom instructions to raise your hand. When you raise your hand and are recognized, please say your name, spell your last name, and give the name of the street. You don't have to give your address. Any public comments will be limited to 5 minutes, and rather than use any of your time answering questions, we'll wait until you finish speaking before responding. We have 2 public comment sessions on tonight's agenda. Each member of the public will be limited to 1 comment of up to 5 minutes during each of the public comment periods. Written comments submitted to the Township Clerk before 3 p.m. today will be read during the public comment sessions. Written comments are subject to the same guidelines as oral comments. Namely, each comment is limited to 5 minutes maximum. Each person can make only 1 comment during for each of the comment periods. And duplicative written comments may be summarized rather than read in full, according to the guidelines issued by the New Jersey Division of Local Government Services. Greg, did we receive any correspondence?
Yes, we do have some, which I will quick read. First off, we have from Emily Conlin, resident of Chatham Street. She says, I would like to address my personal as well as my family's support of the acquisition of the Charlie Brown's property. I believe the town should take whatever measures necessary to prevent a builder's remedy lawsuit. I would also like to encourage the committee to take any necessary steps to restrict the development of the Noe Pond site to protect our environment. The Noe Pond property has become home to an abundance of species, both plant and animal, and I believe it is our town's responsibility to care for them. This location should forever be preserved as a place for our local wildlife to thrive, and it should continue to be a place where the people of Chatham can come together to appreciate the beautiful land and all that it is home to. Thank you. That's from Emily Conlin.
Thank you, Emily.
Next up from Kathy Havens, a resident of Glenmare Drive, to whom it may concern. First, I am very concerned about the new owner-developer, Silverman Group's probable plan to build housing of some sort on the beautiful 35-acre property formerly the Noe Pond Club. First, I have been a member in this wonderful family club since 1986, and am distressed that it will not be there. That ever again. It will be a great place for kids. It was a great place for kids to learn swimming, diving, tennis, etc., and just to have fun with their friends and family. picnics, social events, games, and much more. Second, the majority of the 35 acres there is wetlands and cannot be developed. The township should work to preserve those green acres for posterity at the very least. Also, the township doesn't need more high-density residential buildings. Affordable housing areas are already ongoing in development. Please, I implore the Township Committee to do everything in its power to stop the development there by Silverman Group or any other developers. Thanks very much. Please include this letter in your meeting minutes. Read it if you want at the meeting tonight. Sincerely, Kathy Havens.
Thank you, Kathy.
Okay, next up I have from Stuart Carr from Crestwood. And I know he sent this to the, he emailed this to the Township Committee as well. Mr. LeConte, I will not be able to attend the first public comment period during tonight's Township Committee meeting. I would therefore like to submit in writing for the first public comment period some remarks concerning the open space tax levy for calendar year 2021, and then 6 or as many as 11 related questions. Remarks. All members of the Township Committee have consistently indicated strong support for open space preservation and enhancement in Chatham Township. I applaud that support. In this connection, I urge the members of the Chatham Township Committee to maintain the open space tax levy for calendar year 2021 at the voter-approved 2 cents per $100 of assessed valuation. It is time to break from the practice in recent years of levying a lower amount in the name of saving money for the taxpayers. Saving money for the taxpayers is welcome and prudent as a general and practical matter. However, in the context of lowering the open space tax levy, it is the functional equivalent of saying, I saved money by paying less than the amount that on my, sorry, I think I need to get new glasses, paying less than the amount due on my credit card bill. Related to above, I understand that for open space tax levy is not subject to the 2% levy cap limitation. Therefore, fully assessing the open space tax levy at 2 cents per $100 is purely a policy decision of the Chatham Township Committee. Please advise if I am mistaken in that understanding. All else being equal, this is approximately a 1% increase in the tax levy, e.g. additional $100 for property assessment at $500,000, additional $200 for property at $1 million, additional $300 for property at $1.5 million. This is real money. However, it is also prudent investment toward the maintenance and enhancement of quality of life in Chatham Township over both the short term and the long term. The 2 cents per $100 tax levy is essential to address the existing debt service obligations, as well as to partially or fully finance potential future open space acquisition opportunities. There's a substantial budget challenges every year, and calendar year 2021 will be particularly concerning per above. However, acquisition of additional open space over time in appropriate circumstances is integral to maintaining and enhancing the quality of life for Chatham Township. If you get pushback from taxpayers during calendar year 2021 budget presentations or elsewhere, then that is fine, but that is how the system should work. Chatham Township Committee can then reconsider at that time and then lower the levy if and as appropriate, rather than preemptively lowering the levy from 2 cents per $100 per Chatham Township Committee annual practice for at least the past decade. And then in his email, Mr. Carr then asks each committee member individually If you do at this point support maintenance of the open space tax levy at 2 cents per $100 of assessed valuation for the calendar year 2021 budget, if yes, thank you, and if not, why not? So I will allow you all to answer that individually. Next up, from Casey Leonard, a Huron Drive resident. I'm writing to thank the Township Committee for your continued hard work surrounding the affordable housing situation in our town. I know that it hasn't been easy, but I know you are working hard to do the right thing by residents of Chatham Township. Having said that, I'm writing to beg you to continue to push forward with the acquisition of the Charlie Brown's property at any cost, and also work to preserve the Noe Pond property. Please don't let Noe suffer the same fate as the Dixie Dale property. The aim now is to save the Noe Pond property and not the club itself. But I would be remiss if I didn't mention the wildlife that my family enjoyed during the time spent at the Noe Pond Club to explain why this piece of property should not be demolished by a builder. On any given day, my kids could catch frogs and snails in the shallow parts of the pond. They would giggle as the resident fish tickled their toes. They loved to float on their backs and watch the hawks roar overhead, looking for their next meal, and to listen to the owls communicate with one another in nearby trees. As a family of early risers, we would often be the first ones on the beach, and we loved trying to identify the various animal prints in the sand. The Noe Pond property is a magical place, one that is filled with other important residents of Chatham, and one where everyone enjoys the natural landscape. A big part of what makes Chatham beautiful and special is the peaceful coexistence of all its residents, both people and animal. The Noe Pond property is a huge part of that. Please fight to keep Chatham Township beautiful. Many thanks for your time, Casey Leonard.
Thank you, Casey.
And finally, this is the last time you have to hear me drone on, but we have from Sally Rubin, the Executive Director of the Great Swamp Watershed Association. Dear Mayor Ness and Township Committee members, as you may not know, Great Swamp Watershed Association is entering its 40th year protecting the Great Swamp Watershed and headwaters of the Passaic River. Our mission includes monitoring the waters of our region, preserving and stewarding open space, and providing environmental education to students and the public. Another core tenet of our mission is to advocate for the environment. We have worked in Chatham Township over the years, including helping to preserve Geralda Farms and chairing the community advisory group for the Rolling Knolls Landfill Superfund. We would like to let you know that we're working in collaboration with the Save Noe Pond group, and we will be monitoring any development application at Noe Pond closely. While we realize that the property is zoned for and can accommodate several single-family residences, we are concerned with the potential for overdevelopment, and we would certainly oppose any application to fill the pond. Noe Pond holds a special place in Chatham history, and we hope it remains so. Sincerely, Sally. So those are all the written comments that were received in time for tonight's meeting.
Thank you, Sally. Thank you to the Great Swamp Watershed Association, and thank you, Greg, for your reading of the letters.
And if you don't hear my voice again tonight, it'll be too soon.
It's not easy to read all of that.
But we do have a hand raised for the hearing of citizens.
For the hearing of citizens, if anybody wants to raise their hand and be recognized.
We have a hand up from Bernadette McDonough. If you could...
yes, I'm also a Noe Pond long member since 1986.
Hi, Bernie.
Hi, Tracy, I know. I'm like, just what Chatham needs, more housing. I don't think so, but you do need to keep Noe Pond, because what a beautiful place it is. I'm sad that...
Bernie, can you just, Bernie, for our record, for our clerk, could you please state your name, spell your last name, and your street?
This is Bernadette McDonough, McDonough, but I live in Madison.
That's okay.
281. That's okay.
You're at Madison.
281 Woodland Road in Madison, New Jersey, and I've been a member of NOE since 1986 as well, and just feel like there's so much saving of property going on. You know, I mean, I'm with the Garden Club. There's like New Jersey Conservation came in and spoke to us, open parks here and there, but yeah, and so yes, you go walk in the park. Well, Noe Pond is a very reasonable club to teach kids how to swim, be lifeguard. All my kids. I mean, it's just crazy. Do you guys need more housing? I don't think so. Do you need more $3 million housing? Do you need more, like, I don't know, the Silverman, he's very big in Jersey City and does skyscrapers. Like, do you need that? You don't need that. What you do need is a place for your families, affordable place that they can go and have their kids grow up. It's really sad to me. It made me so sad that this happened. And it you know, it was a lot of money that was changed hands, and I get it, whatever reason that was, but maybe somehow you guys have to save that place. Hopefully. Bye.
Thank you, Bernie. Do we have any other hands, Greg?
That was the only one. Yeah.
Okay, seeing no more comments from citizens, I'll close the hearing of citizens. And we're going to move to the public hearing and final adoption of ordinance 2021. Bob, is there something that you'd like to?
For 2021, this is the
Drainage easement?
2021-01.
Oh, 2021-01.
Yes, this is something that our township attorney had talked about at a previous meeting. This has to do with the Summit Monthly group, also known as the Quakers, and this is basically a drainage easement on that we would be accepting. This actually goes back to 1968. There had been a planning board meeting back in the 1960s where this drainage easement had been approved, but it was not properly recorded, and then it was brought up again a few years ago. So this easement would follow what occurred in the late 1960s, but it also formalizes the drainage patterns on the property, and the Summit Monthly group is planning on subdividing the property. So this ties up several loose ends.
Thank you, Bob. Is there any discussion? No, I'm sorry. I'm going to move. Can I have someone who would like what?
We need the public hearing first.
I thought we had to move it first.
No, you need the public hearing before you have any.
Oh, okay. Is there anyone, so we have a public comment on the hearing, and is there anyone from the public who would like to comment on resolution? I'm sorry, on ordinance 2021-01, accepting a drainage easement on block 102.11, lot 5. Greg, do we have anybody in the public who would like to comment on that?
We do not have any hands raised.
All right, seeing none. Is there any discussion amongst committee members on this ordinance? Seeing none. Then can I have a roll call vote?
We need a motion to adopt.
Oh, I thought I was going to do that. Okay. Do we have a motion to adopt ordinance 2021-01?
So moved.
Very good. Second, I heard Mark with a second. And could I have a roll call vote?
Mrs. Felice?
Yes.
Mr. Hamilton?
Yes.
Mrs. Fundaco?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Ewald?
Yes.
And Mayor Ness?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. We're going to move on to the introduction of ordinances this evening. We have 3 ordinances to introduce. Greg, would you like to read those ordinances? Yes.
So, well, let's start out. They have to be handled individually. So we first have ordinance 2021-02, an ordinance of the Township of Chatham, County of Morris, State of New Jersey, accepting a conservation easement across lot 18.02, Block 60, as shown on the tax map of the Township of Chatham.
So this will be the introduction of this ordinance. And do I have anybody who will move the introduction of this ordinance? Thank you, Celeste. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ashley. Bob, is there anything in particular that we need to know about the conservation easement, or is John going to speak to this?
Yeah, John can speak to this if there's anything about it.
Sure, this is a conservation easement on a single-family home located at 700 Fairmont Avenue. It was the property owner went to the Board of Adjustment to obtain variances for a steep slope disturbance, and they were granted approval for the development of a property, and as part of a condition of approval, the applicant and the board imposed a condition that a conservation easement be imposed on the rear of the property. The conservation easement is approximately 50 feet off of the rear property line, and it's about 5,000 square feet is the dimensions of the conservation easement.
Thank you, John. This is the introduction of the ordinance, but is there any discussion amongst committee members? No? Seeing none, then Greg will set the public hearing for this ordinance.
We need a roll call vote first. Mrs. Felice?
We're going to have a roll call vote first before we...
If you could give a vote yes, no.
I understand. Yes.
Mr. Hamilton?
Yes.
Mrs. Fondaco?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Ewald?
Yes.
And Mayor Ness?
Yes. Thank
Okay,
you.
now that we have had the vote to introduce, which the motion has passed, the public hearing will be on February 25th.
Thank you very much. We've lost Bob, but we're going to move on to the ordinance 2021-03, which is the salary ordinance. This sets the range of salaries for all of the positions, whether they're stipended or straight salary in the township. It is a fairly perfunctory part of our everyday government. Bob, we're introducing the salary ordinance. Is there something specific that you'd like to speak to that?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Thank you. Yes, tonight is the introduction for the township's salary ordinance. The salary ordinance is basically the framework. It's one of the pieces of the township budget. The salary ordinance lists the positions of the township as well as potential positions of the township, and it provides a range, a minimum and a maximum for the projected positions, but there's no action can be taken until a salary resolution is adopted by the township committee. So this is basically the framework, but the substance of the salary of the compensation for the township's employees is the salary resolution, which would be adopted as part of the budget process. So that's the explanation for the salary ordinance.
Thank you. Do I have someone who'd like to move forward 2021-03, the salary ordinance?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Thank you. That was Stacy and Celeste. Is there any discussion about the salary range?
I have just a clarification point. I'm just curious going down the list. Is it permissible, and I think I know the answer to this question, for one person to hold more than one of these jobs at the same time?
Well, there's, if the theoretical answer is yes, we have employees that have been tasked with more than one position, if that's your question.
Yeah, I guess the question would be, the minimum and maximum ranges. If somebody wears both hats, would the maximum range be in excess of the maximum range for one of them?
No, what happens is for each of these positions, the salary resolution is specific for that. So when you see the salary resolution, you would see what would be the specific pay for that position.
Okay.
Okay.
Even if it was going ultimately to two different positions, could be flowing to the same end, please.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. So do I have a roll call vote, please, Greg?
Mrs. Felice?
Yes.
Mr. Hamilton?
Yes.
Mrs. Fundaco?
Yes?
Deputy Mayor Ewald?
Yes.
And Mayor Ness.
Yes.
And once again, the public hearing will be on February the 25th.
And we have the introduction of ordinance 2021-04, which is our cap bank ordinance. Bob, do you have anything that you would like to explain before we move?
Certainly, Madam Mayor. This is, the cap bank ordinance is also part of the budget process. It's, it's something that's necessary. It's a routine piece of the budget process for municipal government. So the township and most of our sister municipalities adopts this cap bank ordinance every year. The township has done it for at least the last 10 years. And what it does is it provides the township with flexibility. So in 2021, the state has said that the municipal cap bank is 1% of last year's in-cap expenditure. So that's very tight, and affordable housing is an in-cap expenditure. So this ordinance gives the township flexibility and the ability to increase the cap bank to a maximum of 3.5% of the in-cap expenses from last year. So what this ordinance is doing is it's giving the township the ability to increase the cap bank 2.5% above what the state says that we can, that the state allows for you to do. So I respectfully ask that this ordinance be introduced and that after the public hearing that it be adopted. What occurs is that the cap bank has 3 years worth of ability for the township to dip into it if need be. So it's a rolling average. So the cap bank is good for the 2021 cap bank. Also has funds from 2020 and 2019. So the 2018 cap bank or the cap reserve that we had is gone away. So it's a 3-year rolling average. So that is the purpose of the cap bank, and this allows us flexibility within cap so that we can do what's best for our residents.
Thank you, Bob. Do I have someone who would move forward ordinance 2021-04?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any questions or discussions? Then Greg will have a roll call vote.
Mrs. Felice?
Yes.
Mr. Hamilton?
Yes.
Mrs. Fundaco?
Yes?
Deputy Mayor Ewald?
Yes.
And Mayor Ness.
Yes.
Motion passes. Public hearing on February 25th.
Okay, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'd like to take the last 3 resolutions out that were just added 2 hours before this meeting.
I don't have anything on here that was decided 2 hours before the meeting.
Number 15, 16, and 17. They
The
were
appointments for
submitted
the appointments for the
agenda.
committees.
4 hours.
Okay.
I would like to also ask that resolution 2021-065 be removed from the consent agenda.
The Wildlife Action Plan?
Yes.
Okay, with those amendments, with the removal of the Wildlife Action Plan pledge and the appointing members to the committees that were approved at our last meeting, do I have motion to approve the consent agenda as amended will remove those 4 items for separate discussion.
So moved.
Second was Mark. Thank you. And then do I have an approval, actually a roll call vote for the, Greg, could you read the items on the consent agenda that are remaining?
Yeah, the remaining items are, not block my camera, 2021-061, payment of bills, 2021-062, approving meeting minutes, 2021-063, approving executive session minutes, 2021-064, overpayment of taxes, 2021-066, reaffirming adoption of idle-free zones, 2021-067, reaffirming support of land use pledge, 2021-068, reaffirming green team, 2021-069, authorizing contract with Fennelly Environmental Associates, 2021-070, authorizing purchase of equipment for phone system, 2021-071, authorizing RFP for field and lawn maintenance, 2021-072, authorizing auction of surplus equipment, 2021-073, authorizing an RFP or an RFQ for deconstruction and or demolition of structure at 490 River Road, and Resolution 2021-074, awarding contract for Hillside Avenue Trail Project.
Thank you, Greg.
And we have a motion in a second already. Mrs. Felice?
Yes.
Mr. Hamilton?
Yes.
Mrs. Fondaco?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Ewald?
Yes.
And Mayor Ness?
Yes, and I'd just like to give a little
Motion
bit of a
passes.
shout out for the phone system. You want to say it?
Okay, this motion passes.
Motion passes. A little bit of shout out for the phone system that we will be saving, Bob, and I think the amount was over $20,000.
Yeah, just over 20, yes.
Just over $20,000 while getting an upgraded phone system with substantially enhancing our phone system and our contract for our phone system and saving over $20,000 in the process. So thank you for continuing that process. I'm not too sure you're going to raise to the level of where we were last year, but in terms of the savings of going through these contracts, but the effort is much appreciated. And maybe you'll stop showing up as the Chatham Township Police when you call me.
That might be a benefit of the new system.
Okay, so we're going to move on to number 5 then, Mark, that you called out, which is Resolution 2021-065, which is the Wildlife Action Plan Pledge.
Okay. So,
I'd like to have someone move number 5, and then we'll have discussion on it.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Thank you. And is there any discussion on this ordinance, on this resolution?
yeah, I had some discussion on this ordinance. I'm not necessarily, opposed to it. In principle, certainly seems like a noble enterprise. But I just am curious about, defined terms contained within something that we're formally adopting that are undefined, specifically the phrase environmental resource inventory. It's unclear to me what that means, and frankly, although it's described from a very high level in the whereas clauses, the New Jersey Wildlife Action Plan is a specific plan itself, and that I'm not intimately familiar with, and I presume it defines therein the phrase environmental resource inventory. So I just have some concerns about adopting this summarily as part of consent agenda without fully exploring exactly what it is that we're committing to, and so I'd appreciate any of the other members of the committee possibly who can discuss the New Jersey Wildlife Action Plan and what it is that we're committing the town to, or proposing to commit the town to with this ordinance. Resolution, sorry.
Mayor, just as a little bit of background, if I may, Just like the three that follow this on the agenda, this is also a reaffirmation of action that was taken by the committee back in 2012. So this is not new action. I probably should have made that more clear.
That was going to be my next question. Yeah, everything else says reaffirmation. This seemed like it was something brand new.
Yeah, I apologize that I should have had that more clear in the agenda, but this is, perhaps Mrs. Fondacco can elaborate, but this is also part of the Sustainable Jersey process that the Environmental Commission is working on.
Yeah, so it is a reaffirmation. This is not new.
Okay, well, that was unclear to me. That more or less alleviates
your concerns? Okay, thank you. Is there any other discussion on this particular item? Hearing none, could I have a roll call vote?
Mrs. Felice?
Yes.
Mr. Hamilton?
Yes.
Mrs. Fondacco?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Ewald?
Yes.
And Mayor Ness?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. We'll now move to Resolution 2021-075, appointing members to the Affordable Housing Committee. Do I have a motion to move that forward?
So moved.
And do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. And is there any discussion from committee members?
Yes. I mean, I was just not included in this process whatsoever, and I have issue with that. I think the residents of the township that elected me would also have issue. I was sent a list of these people that you wanted to place on these committees, and I immediately asked that we'd have an executive session to discuss, and I requested that all the applications to be sent to me so I can review them. The applications were never sent. I don't even know who half these people are or their qualifications. They're literally just names. I was expected to be going to be provided the application so I could advise and consent on them, like the ordinance that was formed said so. I can't do that if I'm not provided information about the applicants. These resolutions to approve the appointments were not on the consent agenda until about 2 hours before this meeting started, which is, I think, a pretty underhanded move, in my opinion. If this is a mayoral decree and you're just going to jam it through, then go ahead. But I think the public needs to be aware of this, and I was completely excluded from the process 100%, and if these are just board committees with zero advice and consent from myself.
Thank you, Ashley. Unfortunately, your information is a bit misleading. In the email that I sent,
Anybody can do an offer.
I gave you your time, now I'm going to speak on my time, and I'll give you a chance to respond, but please don't speak over people. On Monday, February 8th at 5 p.m., all of the list of the applicants were sent to all of the committee members. You responded on February 8th that you would like to have this discussed, and please add it to the agenda. Again, I responded on February 8th that we could add it to the executive session. So the fact that you were not aware of any of this is wrong. You responded on February 8th to the response
Go ahead.
to the invitation to edit, which was a Google document on all of the leadership forms received by the committee. The names that were on there, the names of people that applied. So that was sent on Monday. You responded Monday night. I haven't received any comment from you on any of this, except that you wanted to discuss it. You wanted to discuss the appointees in public session.
No.
A discussion ensued then that it would be added to executive session, which is what I offered to do, so that people could have a comment in executive
session.
Actually, it's not a positive to speak over people. So you've stated that you weren't involved or offered to are involved in this process.
Neither is lying, Tracy. Neither is lying.
I can show the email.
Please do. I really hope you do, because that is just not the facts. I asked you specifically to have a executive session meeting about this, and you did not allow that to happen. I also asked for the applications, and I never received them.
You asked for applications at 4 o'clock this afternoon.
Right when I got them on the consent agenda, immediately after the agenda was sent out.
Are you trying to tell me that with everyone on the committee, that the committees, each of the potential members and the members were not sent to you on the 8th of February, to which you responded, "This needs to be discussed. Please add to the agenda." That was February 8th.
Exactly. I'm asking to discuss it. I'm literally asking you, this needs to be discussed.
Yeah.
And you're saying, no, we're pushing it through the consent agenda. It doesn't need to be discussed. I tried to discuss it during the executive session. You didn't allow it to happen. I have not seen a single application of any of these committee members, these people that you're appointing. It's fine if you want to push this through. Go ahead. But everybody needs to understand that you are pushing this through.
Okay, because that's not what happened. And there is the opportunity to work from Monday when you receive these names to ask questions. And I offered the executive session as well. But, you know, there is questions that can go back and forth
It was
from
not during the
Monday.
executive session. I was prepared during the executive session because that's what you said. You said it had to be discussed during executive session. So I said, okay, fine. You know, I'm ready during executive session.
All right, I think everybody's made their point. I think it's time to move on to a vote unless anybody else has any other comment.
Yeah, I have comment as well, which is, you know, I won't beat a dead horse and just take the position that, you know, people obviously can disagree on their interpretation of things, but from my standpoint as a member of this committee, you know, the description of the process of so-called advice and consent with regard to the members of these committees, which we all knew before these committees were even authorized, would ultimately be mayoral appointments. That's what they are. They're mayoral appointments. And my view of the story is certainly more akin to that of committee member Felice. On Monday, it is correct that we received an email from the mayor informing, I don't think anybody disputes that, informing us that here are the list of people, names of people who submitted applications to be on the committee, and here are the people that I have selected, as is the mayor's right. And these are mayoral appointments. They were selected by the mayor. Mrs. Felice raised then promptly the idea that, you know, this was supposed to involve some advice and consent, of which there had been none prior to the announcement of who had been selected, and suggested that it be discussed in executive session, which was agreed. And I understand the point that the mayor is making now, that there also, I guess in theory, could have been email traffic, but you know, this is a part-time position and we're busy people. From my end, I saw, okay, this has been pegged for discussion during the executive session. The formal adoption and appointment of these people to the committee was not on the consent agenda that was provided to me as early as this morning, because I generally take a couple hours on the day of meetings to really sit and study, and I did study, including the consent agenda, and then at 5 o'clock tonight I found out that the consent agenda had been amended so as to formally adopt these mayoral appointments. And I won't reveal the contents of executive session, but I do not believe that Ashley and myself, you know, had a meaningful opportunity to advise on consent on these nominations. That's the point. They can be voted on. They can be addressed. They are mayoral appointments, but I do not believe the process was transparent.
Thank you, Mark. I will take issue with that. I believe it was. I believe you do have the opportunity, as you did state, that there is time between Monday and today. The outline was clear as to when these were going to be accepted. You're free to reach out to me or to Stacy or to anyone to discuss these at any point in time. We don't have to wait for an executive session. And this has been the process since you guys joined the committee all the way through. So
well, if it
with that,
clear,
we're going
Madam
to...
Mayor, just allow me a quick follow-up, is when I came here to the municipal building to collect the agenda for tonight's proceedings, why was it not on the agenda that we were going to vote to formally appoint these people? And again, we're not really voting. They're your appointments, but it wasn't on the agenda this morning.
It's a good question. I mean, I thought it was going to be on the agenda too, because the deadline was the 6th. This was the process that we were moving towards. Our next meeting is the budget meeting, so there wasn't any reason why it wasn't on there. Greg did the resolutions on Wednesday.
I did the resolutions, yeah, on Wednesday. It was this afternoon that I was requested to put it on the agenda.
Right. Okay, so we're going to move forward with Resolution 2021-075, appointing members to the Affordable Housing Committee. Can I have a roll call vote?
Okay, time is for voting now. Mrs. Felice?
No, I still haven't even finished.
Mr. Hamilton?
Mr. Hamilton?
No, I'm not done, Tracy. I can still
Mrs.
talk.
Fondaco?
I don't just get 5 minutes. Like, I can still.
Celeste?
I hope everyone's aware and seeing this. This is absurd.
Maybe we can have Albert explain to you again, Ashley, how the vote process works. Celeste?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Ewald?
Yes.
And Mayor Ness?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Well, now, we're going to now move to Resolution 2021-076, appointing members to the Business Advisory Committee. Can I have someone to move the Business Advisory Committee?
Great. I get to discuss again, don't I?
We have to move it first, Ashley.
Go ahead.
So move, Celeste. Do I have a second? Second, Stacy. Thank you. Is there discussion about the Business Advisory Committee?
I still have not received any applications, and I mean, perhaps Albert can explain that I am an elected official as well, and I don't get the time limit.
Albert, could you just explain, I think you did, with what happens when there's a roll call vote? There's a discussion first, and then what happens during the roll call vote?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Madam Mayor. There is a motion made and a second made, then an opportunity for a debate or discussion. At some point, the chair gets the opportunity to call for a roll call vote. And when a roll call vote is held, it is not a speaking roll call vote, it is a vote. The mayor, as the but you see, that's the concern I have is you're not letting anyone finish speaking, and so that's I think the process that should be had. Each speaker completes their thoughts. The mayor then has the ability to call again on a speaker, but the chair has the ability, as I said, to call the vote. And the chair has done that, so now it's time to vote.
Okay, and can you also perhaps explain how, committee members are supposed to advise and consent on items that they are not provided any information on?
I view advice and consent as occurring now. This is your role to review the matter now.
Are we listing the names? Are we going through this?
So right now, we're going to be dealing with
executive session.
Right now, the resolutions have all of the individuals that are been appointed.
Right. What other qualifications? Is there other people that have applied for these committees? How am I supposed to opine on this without all the information?
Right now, we're going to move forward with a Resolution 2021. I think we've already had this description, Ashley, everyone who applied and the names of those that were chosen for the committee were on that email on the 8th. So right now, we're going to address 2021-076, appointing members to the Business Advisory Committee. Is there any specific comment to the Business Advisory Committee?
Yes. I would just like to take this opportunity to clarify or state for the record, renew my more or less exact, statement. I won't take the time to say everything again, but the process was the same as far as the Business Advisory Committee, and I do not believe that Mrs. Felice or myself had an opportunity to meaningfully provide advice or consent on this issue. I would also like to clarify one thing, which was there was a little bit of a dialogue with regard to the previous motion, and I just want to make sure I heard you correctly. Greg, you said that you were asked to add this to the agenda this afternoon.
Yes.
So that's the reason why it was not on the agenda this morning.
Correct.
You weren't asked to add it to the agenda until this afternoon.
Correct.
Thank you. And then just with specific regard to the the Business Advisory Committee, the resolution that was adopted by the committee with respect to this committee had specific parameters to it, including that a certain number of the members would be, what were described as owners of small businesses operating within Chatham Township. And I think that it's clear that the messaging that was sent to those people who were watching at home was that we were talking about, what would be traditionally viewed as a local small business. When you hear the phrase, support your local businesses, I mean, the bakery, the bagel shop, the pizza place, the deli, the liquor store, what have you. And, I'm troubled by with absolutely no aspersions towards anybody's, business acumen or anything. I'm troubled by the complete absence of such individuals on the makeup of this committee amongst the mayor's appointees. And particularly to the extent that this committee was sold as a committee that the business owners, there was stories told of members of the committee, meaning this committee, popping into stores and talking to the owners, and there was great enthusiasm for this committee, and I just don't see it. And I made my thoughts on that known before the committee was authorized, and I feel the same way now that, with respect to the members.
Thank you, Mark. Were you able to see what the business designations were beside the names in the document on the 8th?
Yeah.
So they're business owners in the town?
I didn't dispute that they were they were business owners in the town. I just don't think the messaging to the town was, home-based, web-based, consulting businesses, or what people think of when they hear of support local business.
They're businesses in the town. We didn't necessarily specify that everybody has to be a brick and mortar store, but I did designate those people who own businesses on the February 8th memo, just to be clear on that. Is there any further comment on the Business Advisory Committee itself?
Yes, I would like, since we were not provided with the actual applications to actually see what businesses that they actually owned, or really any of they, so have you seen those? Has anybody else on the committee seen those applications?
Yes, Stacy and myself.
Okay, and so you guys are saying that you're 100% certifying that they are real businesses? And then you read the applications?
As they have applied, yeah.
Okay, so you just didn't send them to us?
Yeah.
Okay, so that was a conscious decision that you guys made?
No, I provided the information on the 8th and looked for feedback. I didn't receive any. I
asked for the application so that I could know what type of questions to
At what point in time, Ashley, did you ask for the applications?
So then, excuse me?
Greg, when did you get that?
I think it was 4:48 this evening after I was already home.
Immediately after I saw that it was added to the consent agenda, which Mr. LeConte said that he was asked today to add it on. So, Mr. LeConte, who was it that asked you to add these items onto the consent agenda?
So, the email asking for the applications came at 4:44 this evening.
And when did you send out the new agenda?
It was about 3:30 this afternoon, I believe.
Okay, so I was also busy picking up kids, dropping off kids. It's, hectic time in my house, right around 3:30. I think it's very hectic in most people's houses, especially young mothers. But to sit there and throw three items to the consent agenda at that time, immediately before a committee meeting where there was no advice and consent, there was no.
I can only offer the opportunity.
Can I just clarify something? I did not get applications. I only got applications for the Affordable Housing Committee because I was going through to figure out who lived in what district to make sure we were placing people properly. I went off of the schedule, that Google Doc that included everybody's names. It's the same thing that we all got. So the Business Committee information, the Diversity Committee information, I have the exact same information that you had, but what I did And I picked up the phone when I had questions and I wanted to understand things, and I requested anything that I needed at that time.
Yeah, I just did it. I just did that in an email, and I just said, okay, this needs to be discussed. I didn't know that I needed to sit there, then call you and ask for those items. But so it seems to me the only person who's actually seen the applications are you, Ms. Ness.
Yes.
I'll just add to that,
Okay.
that I was under the impression that, based on the agenda that was circulated, that we were going to, as a committee, discuss the applications and the people who you had provisionally selected to be on these committees during the executive session tonight. And that's not what happened. I think it would be helpful, and I would ask that, before we vote, that just for the record and the benefit of the viewers at home, and to the extent that this particular committee, the Business Advisory Committee, had specific parameters to it as adopted by this committee, including the requirement with respect to township residents operating businesses in the township, that those individuals and those businesses be read into the record and just clarified exactly what businesses we're talking about.
I do want to also make a point. There were no brick and mortar business owners that were kept off of the Business Advisory Committee. So that this is based on people who are willing to step forward and volunteer their time to help all businesses in Chatham Township. We did not disparage anybody because their business was not brick and mortar. One day you may decide to hang your shingle and work from home, and we would not disparage your business because you did not have a brick and mortar. These people have volunteered throughout the town and numerous organizations where they have helped, and they did not have to have a brick and mortar store, whether it was other businesses, whether it was our school district, whether it was our senior facilities. They've shown that they've helped. So I understand what you're getting at. I wish there were brick and mortar, and I know Mayor Ness reached out to a couple of brick and mortar, at least two that I know of, to see if she can get participation, and that did not work out.
Well, I just want to make it very clear that, and I think it is clear for people who are watching, that I made it expressly clear during my comments that, I take issue with the use of the word disparage. I didn't disparage anybody, and I'm certainly not disparaging any non-brick and mortar business operator, and I strongly encourage people to volunteer in all regards. So I don't mean this to in way be taken as disparaging, but I do think it's important to confirm before we vote, that the parameters have been met by identifying the businesses.
Thank you, Mark. I'm going to move for a roll call vote for 2021-076, appointing members to the Business Advisory Committee.
Mrs. Felice?
I would like to record to reflect that I'm not done with the discussion period, so I am a absolute no.
Mr. Hamilton?
No.
Mrs. Fundaco?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Ewald?
Yes.
Mayor Ness?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Resolution 2021-077, appointing members to the Diversity Committee. Do I have someone to move this forward?
So moved.
Thank you. And a second? Thank you. Are there any additional comments that are separate from the ones that we've already heard, objecting to the process, because we've been through this twice? So is there anything specific or different that will address the Diversity Committee?
Yes, I would like to know these people's qualifications.
What's the qualifications? They're volunteers.
I don't know. You tell me. Whoever saw the application. I'm just
They're volunteers. They're not going to be vetted by you.
But there were other people. They were chosen over other people. So what made them better? Like, they were chosen over other people that applied. So I would like to know the reasons why.
Thank you. We can discuss that in executive session.
Well, then we can't vote on it.
If you have the opportunity, Ashley, and please don't, we're going to go over this again and again. I get it. You guys don't like this process.
So
You don't like the, okay, I'm gonna speak.
These are 3 committees that are
I'm
just
gonna
your
speak now.
friends and nobody else are in the entire intent of these committees were supposed to be mayoral appointments with consent of the committees. With
Okay,
advice and consent,
look.
and it was 0.
I understand you want to
Holy
politicize it.
eyes, it was 0.
I need to speak. I understand you want to politicize this process. I understand that what I objected to was that you wanted to do this actually in public and vet people in public, which I absolutely
No, I
shut
asked
down.
her-
I'm going to, Ashley, please. This is a discussion. I absolutely disagreed with that process of vetting people in public. This is not the Hunger Games in Chatham. These
When
are
did I do
volunteer,
that?
I'm going, please, Ashley, I'm just not going to, so I want to explain why okay, you know what? If you can't
You're
discuss it.
straight up lying about me. And that have an issue with that.
We're going to move to a roll call vote for 2021-077, appointing members to the Diversity Committee.
Mrs. Felice?
Absolutely not.
Mr. Hamilton?
No.
Mrs. Fundaco?
Absolutely, yes.
Deputy Mayor Ewald?
Yes.
And
Thank
Mayor
you.
Ness?
Yes. Thank
Motion
you.
passes.
We have a second hearing of the citizens. This is an opportunity for any member of the public to be heard about issues which are not topics scheduled for public hearings. We've already gone through that. We've gone through the directions for public participation. Greg, do we have anybody who would like to participate in our second hearing of the citizens?
We do not yet have any hands raised.
Okay. Seeing none, we'll close.
So we now do have one.
Oh, okay, great.
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, Ashley.
State your name, spell your last name, and your address.
Bob Secchia, Spring Valley Road. Ashley,
Yes.
I applied for the diversity committee. I got 0 consideration. 0.
I'm really sorry to hear that.
Yeah, those are the facts. 0 consideration.
I'm really sorry to hear that.
And I think what you're doing, Tracy Ness, is an abomination. You should be ashamed. You should be ashamed of yourself. You should be ashamed of yourself what you're doing. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Bob. I will note for the record that Bob and I had several email communications about committees that he could be on, dating back to December. Most recently with an email communication about the potential for him to join the Business Advisory Committee. So there have been several email communications between Bob and I, and so that's not exactly correct.
Again, there was no advice and consent, though, so I never knew this person applied. I don't know the qualifications. How is it even humanly possible for someone to sit there and vote on that?
Okay, so their name was on the February 8th memo as I
Yeah,
continue
and it was
to...
nothing else other than a name, under one committee. That was it.
Thank you. Feel free, Ashley, to call, as Stacy did, or Mark to call, to have any of discussions, because we do work in between meetings. So that's part of our job. We can't accomplish everything in the hour that we have for executive session. We can't accomplish
Right, but I
everything
can't
in the
email
thing.
or phone call people that I don't have the contact information to.
Which is why I provided the information to you guys in
You did
advance.
not provide contact information. That's
And
not
we're going to move into the executive session. So we have a second executive session scheduled for this evening.
If nobody else has their hand up, Greg?
No.
So we'll close the hearing of the public citizens. And we'll move into the second executive session.
Resolution 2021-P-04, resolution of the Township Committee of the Township of Chatham and the County of Morris, State of New Jersey, authorizing conference of the Township Committee with the public excluded. NJSA 10:4-12 of the Open Public Meetings Act permits the exclusion of the public from a meeting in certain circumstances, and whereas the Township Committee of the Township of Chatham is of the opinion that such circumstances presently exist, now therefore be it resolved by the Township Committee of the Township of Chatham, County of Morris, State of New Jersey as follows. The public shall be excluded from discussion of the specified subject matter. General nature of the subject matter to be discussed is as follows. Litigation, Kronos Holdings LLC versus Township of Chatham docket, Township of Chatham docket number MRS-L-2024-20. Litigation in the matter.
Madam Mayor, if I may, there's nothing further to discuss on item 2. On the main affordable housing litigation, and you voted upon the personnel items. So the only purpose to go into executive session is to discuss the Kronos litigation.
Thank you, Albert. It is anticipated that the minutes on the subject matter of the executive session will be made public upon conclusion of the matter under discussion, and in any event when appropriate pursuant to NJSA 10:4-7 and 4-13. The committee will come back into regular session and will not take any further action. This resolution shall take effect immediately, and we will need a motion and a second.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to move into executive session?
So moved.
And do I have a second? Thank you. We will come back out of the executive session to close the meeting. It's not anticipated that we'll be taking any action at that time. So if you don't stick around for us to come back out to close it out, thank you very much for joining our meeting tonight. Everybody stays.
We do still need a vote.
You need a vote?
Oh, sorry. Can I have a roll call vote?
Mrs. Felice?
Yes.
Mr. Hamilton?
Yeah.
Mrs. Fundaco?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Ewald?
Yes.
And Mayor Ness?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay. So if everybody would move over to our executive session. If we don't get a chance to say goodnight to all of you, thank you very much for joining us this evening at our regular meeting. Stay safe, stay warm, stay out of the snow, be kind, and we look forward to seeing you all at our next meeting.